My name is Greg Healy. I was held hostage through the night at the Valley Stream Staples in 2002.
My name is Paul Wasik. In 2002, I was held hostage with 11 other individuals at the Staples store in Valley Stream. There was about a good dozen people that were there that night that worked there, and that included Jeff, the manager at the time.
The store closed at 9. Nothing had really happened until after closing. Jeff would have to walk the store at fully left. And nobody could find him.
The only place Jeff could have been was downstairs because everyone was in the front. I see an individual in a squatting position lunge forward at me. That individual was trying to tackle me to the ground. I was trying to fight him off. I see Jeff Higgins lying face down. I thought for sure he was dead. And I'm like, okay, they're gonna kill me right now. They knew there was a safe. They knew someone had keys to the safe.
I was aware that the keys were on me and that they could find them. It could get violent. That's when panic started to set in. I lived in a town called Valley Stream, New York, Long Island. It's a typical suburban area. Queens is right over the border. But the neighborhood itself is pretty quiet. You know, everybody kind of knew each other.
Valley Stream it's this idyllic community that's about a half an hour away from Manhattan. People like and love it for its proximity to the city. It's the most diverse city in New York State. And in spite of its size, it has a very small town feel. People look out for each other, and it's a very close-knit neighborhood.
I was 24 at the time. I started at Staples in 1997. I had gotten the job through a friend. Staples was selling everything. It was usual office stuff. It was one of my first jobs. I started part-time, became full-time pretty quickly, and then became head cashier.
I grew up in Valley Stream most of my life there. I was about 18 years old. I went to Valley Stream Central High School. I did have a girlfriend, Christina. It was back in 2000 we started dating. I lived probably 2-3 minutes away from where I worked.
The store is pretty big. I mean, for Staples, there is an upstairs and a basement, but the actual store is on the main floor. It's on Sunrise Highway, which is a pretty busy road. Train station is directly across the street. So there's a lot of activity around the building.
I worked in the electronic area. You had your Palm Pilots. They had some laptops and computers, fax machines.
Back then, there was still a lot of cash being used. So there was a good amount of cash coming in and out of the store every day. I was just responsible for counting the safe, making sure the safe was good, and putting the drawers away for the night.
Manager at the time the incident happened was Jeff Higgins. Very nice guy.
He was a good guy to be around. He was very easygoing. You know, everybody seemed to like him. For the most part, it was a fun job. A lot of good people there. It was fun. It was definitely a good time. Most of the time.
Pretty much it was a normal day, you know. I got up, went to school, then I went to Staples.
A young guy named Kyle, he had just started that day. He was, I guess, spent his day training.
There was about a good dozen people that were there that night that worked there in different departments, and that included Jeff as well.
I was closing that day, so I probably went in 1:30 or 2 o'clock, I would guess, for a normal 8-hour shift. The store, I believe, closed at 9. Nothing had really happened until after closing.
Store would close at 9 o'clock, so what would happen is there would be an employee or maybe the manager would stand by the main entrance.
Which was opposite of Sunrise Highway, the main road. The back door was on Sunrise Highway. But those are the only two ways in or out on the main floor.
The last customer could be there for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And then you have to do your cleanup. And the cashier's got to do their cash out.
I would pull the cash drawers, count the safe at night, make sure the drawers were locked away. I was one of maybe 3 key holders for the cash office in the safe. Jeff would have to walk the store and make sure everything was good, before we left. And nobody could find him. So that was kind of the first sign that something's weird.
We did hear like a yell. We thought maybe it was just Jeff, maybe he slipped or fell. Didn't think anything of it during that time. Everyone was getting antsy, like, where is this guy? Why isn't he coming? The only place Jeff could have been was downstairs because everyone was in the front. There comes a time where you're like, something serious happened. No one wanted to go downstairs. And I'm like, I'm tired, I want to go home. I'm like, you know what? Screw this, I'm going downstairs. I'm kind of calling Jeff's name, walking down the stairs. I'm like, Jeff, are you there, Jeff? Hello, Jeff, are you there? Once I hit the ground level, after that last step, I make the left turn. I'm walking about 2-3 feet. I see an individual like in a squatting position lunge forward at me. I see like a can in his hand, and I've been maced. That individual was trying to tackle me to the ground. I was trying to fight him off. I thought it was one individual. Turned out another individual came behind me, cracked me, and was hitting me in the back of the head. I see Jeff Higgins lying face down, not moving. I thought for sure he was dead. I thought either they killed him when he fell down the stairs, did they break his neck? Is he dead? Like, I thought, I'm actually seeing a dead body in front of me, and I'm like, okay, they're gonna kill me right now. Like, these guys meant business. At one point, he put me in a chokehold, and I was hit repeatedly, and I was maced. So I was swinging for the fences, trying to fight. I got this chain as a Valentine's Day gift from my girlfriend at the time. During the altercations, one of the individuals must have ripped it off my neck. Literally had like these cut marks around my neck where the chain was ripped off. Saw the third individual, and I saw the handgun on the pallet. I'm like, yep, I can't fight back because there's 2 guns, 3 guys. Chances of me surviving this is very slim to none at that point. But when you're blind and you have 2 people on top of you trying to take you down, chances of you winning, being blind, and 2-on-1 is not going to happen. You're not going to win. So another employee comes downstairs, was a female. I remember them saying, "Shut your mouth, get on the floor, bitch." They bounded everyone up that was downstairs with packing tape.
I was on the main floor. I didn't really know what was happening. So at that point, it wasn't really panic yet. When I really knew something was off was when I watched somebody go down to the basement. They got to the bottom of the stairs. They put their hands up. And then they walked forward, and I didn't see them after that. I got on the phone with 911.
911, what is your emergency?
And while I was on the phone, that's when I first saw somebody who didn't work there. That's when I first saw the gun also. That's when we were told to get on the floor. I hung up. That's when panic started to set in, because then it became real. This isn't a prank. I was thinking about if my phone call was enough to get someone to know to come to the store.
A call comes through 911 and basically said there's a robbery in progress. There's unique problems here because what happens is it's a cell phone. We're not getting like a reverse 911 number or anything like that. We're not quite sure what Staples it's at. There's 2 or 3 Staples in the vicinity of a Sunrise Highway along our stretch in Nassau County. So we don't know, how do we handle this? It's a manpower issue. We got to send people to each store simultaneously, get there as quick as you can, and determine what's going on. We send officers to all 3 locations. Our uniformed officers are there for an emergency call like that probably within 2-3 minutes. When the 5th precinct shows up in Valley Stream, they go to the front door. They see a young girl come to the front door.
The guys who were robbing the store made her go to the front and tell the cops everything's okay.
There's 2 men standing behind her. You're a police officer, you go into a scene. You see a woman come to the front door, all right, young, who looks scared, who doesn't look like she's in control, right? There's 2 people looming behind her. You could tell she's afraid. Her body language reeks that, I am being compelled to do this. I don't want to do this. You know, you could sense it. We're police officers. We read people for a living. And that's the sense that they got. And they started calling in the cavalry.
2002, I was assigned to the Bureau of Special Operations for the Nassau County Police Department. The Bureau of Special Operations is the tactical team on the SWAT team. We got a call for a possible hostage situation at Staples in Valley Stream. Robbers had entered the building. We went about the situation of setting up a hostage rescue / arrest team and setting up sniper observers that we put up to keep an eye on overwatch of the situation.
There's 4 of us downstairs. Jeff kind of made like a noise. I'm like, okay, he's alive. My eyes and everything are burning me. I mean, Jeff's like, yeah, my shoulder and my knees hurting me. I know he was thrown down the stairs. What the severity of his injury was, I had no idea. I'm thinking the worst is going to happen at this point, but I'm going to go down with a fight at the end of the day. That was my attitude. New York is strong. People from New York are strong.
When this happened, it was less than half a year after 9/11. For people in Valley Stream, which was hit very hard by the terrorist attacks. The community had lost 39 people in those attacks, including 8 men and women who worked for the police and fire department. It was still gripped by fear and still mourning in the wake of 9/11.
We just saw the smoke and everything. My father was one of the responders there for 9/11. I remember him coming home. My father had black boots, and I remember I came home that day, and the boots were literally like white boots. Was this a terrorist attack? You know, things are running through your mind.
There were some definitely harrowing events that the community was still trying to recover from.
In the early phase, the perimeters are set up, sniper observer teams are above, and then gathering as much information as possible. Big thing for us, it doesn't matter if it's small or large. It's finding out entrance and exits, how many floors there are. If there's a basement, stairways, that stuff is important to us because the logistics of getting in and finding out where everybody is.
The people that were in there, there's no doubt that they were frightened. The people that were downstairs who were actually, bound and gagged, I mean, I can't imagine that feeling, quite frankly. That must have been awful for them.
It was very terrifying because one of them has a gun. These guys were asking me, where are the keys for the safe? I'm like, I don't have the keys for the safe. They knew there was a safe. They knew someone had keys to the safe. This was planned out. We hear through a walkie-talkie someone talking to them. They were communicating to someone outside. It was one-way communication. The person outside was a female, was saying, guys, where are you? You need to get out of there. Come on, let's go, let's go. Now, if I wanted to flee, who's outside? Do they have a gun? Is there one or two individuals? There's a lookout that I'm aware of outside. Are there more? So now I'm like, I'm totally screwed at this point. Now they realized, we have 4 people down here, and there's more upstairs. So they ran upstairs to the main floor.
They were kind of just toying with us at first, leaning on my shoulders, putting the gun to our heads. They figured out at that point that there was police outside, so they wanted to get us away from the windows. So they moved us to the back of the store and just told us to lay on our stomachs.
And that's when all 4 of us downstairs just started hearing footsteps, screaming, yelling, get on the ground, everyone over here. And I'm like, oh, this is even bad. This is getting even more of a terrible situation.
The keys I had were for the cash office and the safe. There was a decent amount of cash in the safe at all times. I want to say the safe always had about $4,000 in it. I was concerned that they would find the keys in my pocket, and that would just escalate things.
What the robbers wanted to do was to hide in the basement until closing time, and then get to the safe and to leave with as much money as possible.
I was definitely aware that the keys were on me and that they could find them, and they could, either make me go into the safe, get the money for them, or it could get violent. If they couldn't find the keys, or, there was a lot of ways that could go.
We were just pretty much standing by at that point, trying to see if some conversation could be had with either the perpetrators or people inside. So we're kind of like in a holding pattern. Crisis negotiation was called to the scene.
When I got there, I found out I was being summoned to be a negotiator. I was doing de-escalation with people before it became a fancy word. As a negotiator, I had to go through training in New York City. They were the first people to do it. They were the first hostage negotiation team, I think, in the world, right? And we were the second. And I was always taught as a cop, it's a lot better to talk somebody into handcuffs than have to roll around with them, because anybody could get hurt, including the cops and including the subject, and we really didn't want that to happen. My role is to get that phone ringing and see if someone will pick it up.
We started hearing commotion upstairs, get on the ground, people screaming, employees screaming and everything. Everyone was fearful for their life. There was another incident at a Wendy's where a burglary happened and they killed the employees there.
7 people shot and 5 dead at the scene. It was not what we'd call like a usual call.
2 years earlier, at a Wendy's in Flushing, Queens, there was a robbery, and it ended in an awful way where employees of the Wendy's were executed.
I'm fearing the worst is going to happen at this point, after what happened, hearing the stories. A lot of people were thinking at that time, are we the next Wendy's but a larger scale?
If they're robbing a Staples, they're not here to take pens. They waited until everybody was out and we were all together, and then realized that they're probably here for money.
I was angry, because now I'm thinking to myself, the store had no cameras. If something bad was to happen to all 12 employees at that time, there's no footage of who did it. I'm like bound up in tape around my mouth, tape around my legs, tape around my hands. I was literally like, screw this. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna free myself and I'm gonna fight for my life. I don't care at that point. That's when I kind of freed myself from the tape. When your adrenaline's pumping, your body does some crazy things. So I literally just ripped it. Brute force strength, just ripped it, literally just hurt my wrist and just pulled apart and just snapped. And then from there I was able just to undo it from my feet. I used my cell phone to call my girlfriend's house. Her mother picked up the phone and I told her what was happening. She was like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes, just call 911. This is what's happening. I'm at Staples, I'm being held hostage." Well, I guess it was more of a shock to her, like no one's heard of a hostage situation happening in Valley Stream. The reason why I didn't call 911 is I didn't want to stand on with an operator. God forbid if these people came back downstairs. I wanted to make a quick phone call, hang up, let someone else do it.
We eventually get the numbers of the 4 hostages that are down the basement. We get the manager on the phone, and my sense is that he's not in a good way. He's been bounced around a lot. They've all been threatened. And I finally speak to the young lady. She was pretty composed, and she verified what the others were saying about the guns, but she also gave us a tip. And that tip was basically, they've got a radio in here and they're talking to somebody on the outside. So that message goes out there to the street cops, to the Bureau of Special Operations.
Now we know we have a lookout telling what's going on to possible bad guys inside. It jacked up the entire situation at that point because all of our positions, our movements could all be compromised. The tension level is raised because of the possible danger involved. You know, you have somebody who has a lookout outside telling the bad people inside what we're doing. That's not good.
During that time, I'm thinking, I have 2 brothers and a sister, my mother, my father, my girlfriend. Am I going to see them again?
The family members were led to American Legion. They opened their doors. There's a unification type area where people go and wait.
So my father was emptying out their bar, probably because, when he saw 9/11, he probably thought the worst was going to happen.
Jeff Higgins, the manager on duty, he probably went through the worst of it during this attack. He was very roughed up. His life was threatened. Staples employees who were at the American Legion and who were anxiously awaiting the outcome of what was happening in this hostage situation.
The store is doing bad, and he's a really good manager.
Jeff puts himself last, so everybody is going to be okay before him. He'll make sure everybody gets out okay, and if he's the last person to walk out, he will be.
Within Staples, the hostages were spread out. There was a group of them in the basement. There was a group of them on the main floor.
The information about inside the store was very small. And at that time that we first arrived, it was unknown how many perpetrators might be mixed in with them. Protocol would be to contact either Staples building manager. Can you get us a layout? In that situation, we didn't have that information.
It's a unique scene. A lot of different things were happening. We had a lot of people coming to the scene. We had a lot of media coming to the scene, and maybe have an ambulance ready in case something's going to go wrong. So they're covering all the bases. One officer went as far as to block the rear door of Staples, right, so no one could come out the back.
We had been laying there for a while. We were just afraid to move. At first, we were still terrified. We were on our stomachs. We couldn't see where they went. They could have been right there the whole time. We still had no idea where they were in the building. The guys were being pretty threatening, aggressive, until I think they realized that the police were outside. And then I think that started to turn to fear for them. They didn't know what to do at that point. After laying there for a while, we started to kind of talk to each other. We talked about how we were going to get out. Some people just did not want to. They were like, I'm not moving. We're staying here, because they were terrified. We saw the keys hanging from the door. One of the men who was robbing the place, I guess, had gotten Jeff's keys and had tried to go out the back door and couldn't get out. So they just left the keys there. Do we just go right out the back door? We tried to push the door open and we couldn't get the door open. A car was blocking it. That was scary, because that was the closest way out for us, and we couldn't get out. And we were kind of deflated. You know, now we got to start over again, put another plan together. Now what?
To give you a picture, all right, south side of Sunrise Highway, there's maybe 3 lanes, and then there's the Long Island Railroad station at Valley Stream with some setback parking lots. Some of those parking lots are in position to be able to see right across the street the full length of the Staples building.
When we first set up the team, a sniper observer, he said, guys, there's somebody moving a car in the parking lot.
And what we find is a lone car.
And that's where we found Danita Brown was in the front seat, holding a walkie-talkie in one hand.
She's there, probably crouched behind the wheel, lying low. And I believe she might have had some binoculars with her.
She had another radio in the console. We have lights on our weapons, so we put the light on the window. She was like a deer in the headlight, and she put her hands up. She was immediately like stunned that we were there. Pulled her out of the car, handcuffed her and brought her in.
We arrest her and we debrief her. And she provides us with the fact that there were 3 men inside the store.
It was just me, Jeff, and 2 other employees there of Staples still downstairs. Jeff Higgins probably took the worst of it all. I was probably the second. No one else, I think, really got beat up or pummeled like we both did. For those few hours in the basement, we would hear movement. We would pretend to lay back down, thinking they were coming down. At one point, I wanted just to get up and get the hell out of the store. But I didn't want to leave anyone behind.
We realized we had to get the keys out of the door to try and get out the front. I made an attempt to get the keys out of the door, crawling. And I just couldn't get them out fast enough. So I went back. It was Kyle. His first day, he was the one that got the keys out of the door. I was afraid of one of the robbers seeing us planning to try to get out. And all I saw was getting shot, trying to get out of the building.
Danita Brown, she was the lookout person for the 3 men on the inside of the building. And basically she was communicating with them throughout the night until her arrest.
She provided the license of one of the 3 men. So I'm looking at a driver's license that has the name Kevin Grant on it. And obviously on the driver's license is a photo. A call comes to 911, and it's him.
It was Kevin Grant, whose girlfriend was the lookout person in a car communicating with the group. Kevin Grant reached out to police and told police that he got caught up in this.
He's portraying himself to be a customer who walked in the store, who came all the way from Brooklyn, he tells me, to buy a clipboard. I'll never forget that. I almost had to, like, hold in a laugh when he said a clipboard, right? From Brooklyn. No place in between where you could get a clipboard, I guess. It's kind of a little game of cat and mouse. It started out with me coaxing him that everything was going to be okay. Are you okay? Are you injured? Did anybody hurt you? Did anybody harm you? I'd always start my conversation out that way because it shows caring. You know, and there is caring, of course. But in this particular case, I cared that he'd be put in handcuffs.
Once we had the keys, we had to decide what to do. We had no idea what was going on outside the building. We had heard a helicopter, but we didn't know if that was for us or, you know, we had no idea what was going on. There was a couple of people that just didn't want to chance it. They didn't want to run. We kind of had a conversation like, if some of us are going, we're all going. No one is staying here. It had been long enough where if these guys were around, we would know by now. And it had been long enough where we just decided, let's just go. Our only way out was going to be the front door. So we decided that we were just going to make a run for it. It was a lot of space that we had to cover to get to the front of the building. We had a direct shot to the front door, but we had no idea what was going on the whole other left side of the store. At that point, I had the keys. I remember getting to the front door, putting the key in the lock, and somebody behind me banging on the door, and it was shaking it so I couldn't get the key in. And then eventually it got it open, and all of us ran out. There was police and SWAT team outside the store.
Door open, they all ran out. And then I think they were kind of like surprised because there's a whole bunch of guys in black yelling, "Stop, come to us."
That felt great to finally be out. I think we were all kind of still in a state of shock.
There were 7 people that managed to get out, I think, pretty much on their own with the help of BSO. And then we still had 4 people down the basement.
Kevin Grant tried to deceive law enforcement, but they were onto him while they were on the telephone with him.
I'm telling them we're there to help, and this goes on for a little while.
The police told him to exit the building.
And then he says to me, "Do you want me to, there's a Staples manager's jacket here, do you want me to put that on?" And I said, "No, don't put it on. Just come out the way you are." Tell him, "I want you to come out, look straight ahead. There's going to be a sergeant or a police officer giving you orders. Obey those orders. It's meant for your safety and their safety. Have your hands up, have your palms out so that they can see you."
So he thought he was home free.
It was a surprise that he had the Staples jacket on. It was a surprise to me because he's a bad guy. He's going to do what he can do to try to get out. And they knew what to look for right away. And he was under arrest. Not a good guy. And it made me think of an old police show where I saw something like that happen. And I said, oh my God, I'm living this. As soon as Kevin was in cuffs, all right, we continued to try to call the store. And we know we've got it from his accomplice who's outside that he'd have 2 men remaining in that store who are both people with previous robberies, arrests, okay, and dangerous. We have to still get people out.
2 arrests made so far. One arrest, police say, was a woman serving as a lookout, sitting in a car in the parking lot. The other arrest, a mail robber who mistakenly thought he'd escape by posing as an employee himself.
We've been here for hours now. The police department kept calling my cell phone. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? You guys coming in? They were asking the description of the individuals. What do they look like? What were they wearing? Well, what's happening? They're no longer with me. They're upstairs. Where they are they on the main floor or are they on the second floor? I have no idea.
I'm doing my thing, ringing the phone and ringing it some more. I wish they would get on the phone with me so I could talk them out as well, because I don't like putting the Bureau of Special Operations into danger if I don't have to. The chief said, Kevin, do you think we're going to have any luck? Do you think anybody's going to pick up the phone? I said, well, boss, it's been a while now, so I think it's unlikely that these guys, they're looking for a way out. It's unlikely that they're going to pick up a phone. And he said, okay, then we're going to go tactical.
When we go in to do the rescue of hostages, well, then we're going to take the front. We're going to do it slow and deliberate, as stealthy as possible, rescue the hostages, and get the heck back out.
We're in the basement still. You start hearing footsteps slowly going down the stairs. Everyone's wearing like the same black boots. And I realized it was the SWAT team. Like weights were lifted off of me at that point. Huge sense of relief. They actually pick us, help get us up, and as they go to get Jeff, he just literally collapses because he can't even stand on his knee. They're like, yeah, he's gonna need help, guys. And they're like, come on, let's go. I was happy it was now over. And I just wanted to go home at that point.
We're switched from a strictly hostage rescue, which would just be to get the people out, to an arrest team. So now we're in a hunter mode. We're still missing the 2 bad guys. We were in gas masks, which is the first time in Nassau County Special Operations history we used gas masks.
They don't know what they're facing. They go in there and they have all the tools, but they don't know what they're facing.
One of the team members says, I think I see movement on the ceiling. So we could see from the drop ceiling, you could actually see the feet moving across. Like, yeah, they're up there.
These guys were up in the ceiling tiles looking for a way out up top.
Now it becomes a question of how do we deny space. We were able to use pepper spray from large bottles to try to deny them space. And at the same time, as they were spraying the bottle, they were using fireman's crook, which is a long pole with a metal end, to rip down some of the panels. And that's when we got the first guy, because his foot was hanging down from the ceiling. They were ripped down. At the same time the first guy's foot got exposed, you could see another section of panels moving as somebody was running across. So 3 of us who saw it went to the next door and we did the same exact procedure. The one guy in the first room, although his foot fell down, because he was apparently standing on one girder that was there, was hanging on for dear life, like on the top with the arms wrapped around. He was up there for a solid 10 minutes. So they just kept pulling and pulling and pulling, and finally he broke loose. They were combative, and the other guy that we found too, right to the end.
It started out as a robbery gone wrong, and it ended up being a kidnapping as well. Once that one phone call leaked out of that building that there were people in here, I mean, it was just, it was doomsday for them.
Our families were waiting for us at the American Legion around the block from the store. My mother, my father, and my stepmother were there waiting. And it was pretty emotional that finally, we were out. We had no idea, how big a story this had become while we were in there.
All right, first in the news this morning, a dozen hostages free after a standoff on Long Island.
Came to light that there was another person who was involved with the planning, a former employee, all right, who knew the layout. All the culprits served some time. They all were convicted.
Anytime you can get all the hostages out safely, nobody gets hurt seriously, it's a win-win.
I was only out for a week or so. And I told them I'm not closing for a while. I'm only working in the morning for a while.
Christina was out there at the Legion waiting for me with my family, and I think her family was also there as well, too. I could see the relief on their face. They were, happy to see me. I was going through some tough times, anxiety, very on edge, Didn't want to really go out and be around crowds.
I was fighting back until they put a gun to my head and then they tackled me.
November 7th of 2009, me and Christina got married. She stood by my side. There was some tough times during that incident. We managed to stick it out and got married and had kids. I asked the cops, can you find my chain? And I think the next day they called me. They said, oh, we recovered your chain. This chain actually right here, this gold chain. It was just the chain that I had that was ripped off of my neck. The cross was given to me afterwards by my in-laws, saying, obviously, someone's looking out for you up there.